Over the years, Minecraft has grown from an indie single-player game to a worldwide phenomenon. There's a reason why the Google searches for the game went up rapidly over time, especially with the pandemic of 2020, and the recent release of an admittedly cringe movie starring Jack Black based on the game's title has not done it that much justice. But insofar as the game is considered a worldwide phenomenon, it is also oddly specific to a whole another generation, Generation Z. People like myself, born in the early 2000s, may remember the earliest versions of the game. The game that we grew up on is sadly just no longer here. It is no longer here to be experienced by new generations of players who will never have the justice of playing for the first time with their friends on an Xbox 360 starter world, or living out their first night in Pocket Edition, hoping to get some gold to build the Nether reactor. I still remember when the feature was added to the game, and I rushed over to my mom's room with my tablet to show her the cool new thing added to my favorite post-school experience. To some, that may be considered a good thing, but judging on the progress of my channel, many still reflect on the older days. I'll give you guys some background now. Several weeks ago, I began this channel to showcase my Minecraft InfDev world. For a brief summary of the game's versions, Minecraft InfDev is one of the earliest. The release of the game was periodical, as explained in a 2011 interview between Minecraft's creator Notch and Bethesda's Todd Howard, conducted around the same time as the game's official release during Minecon on the 11th of November 2011, in commemoration of the end of World War I. That last part is actually a joke, but just hear out what Notch had to say.
Part of the reason we chose the release date, 11/11, because they can just drop the game and start playing Skyrim instead.
I think it's really cool we have the same release date, but isn't your game out? Like, what does it mean when that's your release date?
Well,
I can finally play Minecraft?
No, you can play it already. That's why it didn't really matter which date we picked, because we're gonna keep selling it. We're not gonna have like a huge weekend.
Right.
So, but it's basically when we're out of beta, and then we're gonna try to do like a big thing about it. So, get the fans involved with, are we gonna make it and stuff like that.
Indeed, he is right about this. Minecraft is the most popular game in the world to this day, but also it is the only one in Wikipedia's list of the 100 highest ranking best-selling titles that was playable before release. In fact, the game had several version iterations before the actual release of the game, rapidly changing and growing with each coming day, and it is so confusing in hindsight how such a development model could have worked. The first versions of the game were not even paid for, as they were released on indie game forums in around mid-2009. They were rudimentary, basic Java applets made off of a previous game model named Cave Game, without a name, without a menu, reusing assets from significantly older projects. And as the game would amass a rather niche following, and an official website and a Tumblr blog called The Word of Notch would be made, the game went through these several progress iterations. These periodical versions go as follows: test versions, classic, InDev, InfDev, Alpha, Beta, and then full release. The first of these, test versions, were perfected around 2009, and towards their end they were no longer published as Java applets to forums, but instead downloadable for the Minecraft.net website, freshly made for this exact reason. Minecraft Classic was a Java applet available to make an account and play online from 2010 up until 2012 for its full version, and was limited to what we nowadays call creative mode. InDev was the first paid version of the game, available for purchase for around €9 or $10, where you could randomly generate a world during daytime and build on it, trying to survive and find rare ores in the ground. And InfDev is the first version to what we now call Minecraft, the first full release with a menu, savable worlds, fully recoded and reprogrammed for PCs as a full-on Java app.
Let's go to a place where everything is made of blocks, where the only limit is your imagination.
And recoded appropriately so as to allow the game app to run on worlds on your local computer, and it was officially released on the site in March of 2010. And the first playable world version of this game is what I've been running my series, Minecraft for the Ages, on for the past several weeks, taking in the versions of InfDev. The goal of the series is to go through pretty much every version of the game, through InfDev, Alpha, Beta, and then full release, to see exactly how the game changes before my very eyes. Since the pandemic, there's been a rush and a long haul to speedrun the game as fast as possible, beating the Ender Dragon introduced in Minecraft 1.0, at the time appropriately called Purple Boss Health. Whoa, that name. Great job, Mojang. Good job, guys. which would lead to the game rolling the final credits and getting a rare item called the Dragon Egg, and that is that. This is why the recent trend of so-called forever worlds has been failing miserably. For those unintroduced to the trend, the idea is to abandon the typical 2-week Minecraft stage where you play the game with friends and then get bored of the lack of final progression, and instead make only one world to play on, forever. How the game was always intended to be played. But was it? If you don't switch version to version like the game developed when it only had a 1 or 2 person team, updates take months to come by just so you can get horses, or rideable ghasts, or a big scary boss, or llamas. Okay, Minecraft's progression sucks, it's ass, and it has been for the last 10 years or so. Not just linear progression of the game's development, that early experimentation when the game could be taken in any foreseeable direction possible, that really was key. Once the game became something, it is no longer so playable because now it is something rather than nothing, rather than a void that you can make and turn to your own liking. With Minecraft for the Ages, I can basically play every update as if the game were upgrading before my very eyes in real time. I can see new glitches, new things rapidly being introduced to the game, feel the real progression that drew the first million couple players in, and got them talking and spreading the game through pictures, videos, forum posts, word of mouth at schools around the globe. Now, there is no point in making a forever world. There is a reason why many people who got tired of playing the game in hardcore, where it can easily be hacked, by the way, also started a forever world series that ended. The entire idea of the trend is to make a world that you'd play on forever. And yet, here we have hundreds of video creators who decided to just restart. The game's full release progression, ever since the popular Purple Boss health update, has kind of sucked. It's like if someone filled your living room up with new furniture and said, "Hey, it's the same old living room. You still have all of your stuff here." Like, no, get the fuck out of here. This is a completely different room. So many people justify others playing old Minecraft as if it were just nostalgia. They call them the Golden Age Minecraft community because supposedly these people call themselves Golden Age players from a version of the game that was just objectively better. But answer me this, if I began playing the game around beta 1.7.3 in the summer of 2011, then how can I actually be nostalgic for a version 2 iterations back? The textures, the world, the absence of mobs at all, prior to their development, is just not something that I'm very familiar with. I wanted to make a video to justify why so many people play such a version, that is, before their time. And rather than resorting to the simple explanation of simplicity or replayability, my argument on this topic, different from the plenty of other YouTubers who have made their own, takes on this perplexing situation known, is that the game is just fun. Old Minecraft allows you to have fun by setting your own goals. The first time I was introduced to this game, and I decided to introduce somebody else to it, story time by the way, was when my dad brought me over to his rich friend's house and I was sitting with this kid who was like 4 years older than me, so autistically, I walked over to him and showed him this game, and he goes, "What's that?" And I say, "It's a game." And he says, "Okay." And I say, "Yeah." And he says, "What's the point of the game?" And I say, "There is no point." And he goes, "A game with no point?" And I say, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, that just sounds fucking boring." And I'm like, it's not. And then he went up in his room. And then I went home that day thinking to myself, in my puny 10-year-old brain, playing the first versions of Pocket Edition on my tablet, that he was wrong. And I began to wonder, how did I enjoy this game? How did I enjoy a game with an open world like to Grand Theft Auto 5, with a design that couldn't be more complicated than that of Legos, so much? It seemed to be mixing two aesthetic themes at once and not doing a very good job at it, so why was I having fun? This continued. Just a year later, I was getting swimming lessons because back then I couldn't swim. Now I could safely actually doggy-style 4 laps around the pool faster than you, and drown towards the end, by the way, so just try me, but bear with me, back to it. When I was taking these swimming lessons, a very similar thing occurred. My swim instructor asked me why I was so tired, so I said that I was up late all night gaming, and he asked what game, and I said Minecraft. And this time he was familiar with it, and just like that, my slightly less puny 11-year-old brain had to comprehend that my swim instructor didn't like the game I was playing. He just said that it was boring, that I should play real games, and even better, just go outside and learn how to engage with the real world and play some sports and have some friends. And unfortunately, over a decade later, I still have not taken his advice, because I'm right here doing the same thing all over again, just to a more intense degree. But this time, I'm sharing my passion with the world. I'm a lot wiser. And I'm playing an older version. How is this even possible in a game that has no real progression? No real feeling of achievement outside of a self-dictated one? No finish line implemented yet, and not for ages to come. Old Minecraft is vibrant. More bare bones. It reminds me of SNES 64 games, something like Super Mario Bros. Or Mario Kart or another thing more like to my mom's generation, rather than my own. It reminds me of two other childhood games I've played, The Sims 2 and Wildlife Park 2, and both of these fairly underdeveloped games had complicated and fun mechanics that still keep me up, that got a player base for so long that now I have them in my Steam library along with other gems like Gamer Girls 18 Plus Esports Sex. The game is very rudimentary. It doesn't seem to have a hell of a lot going on. Finding ores is rare due to an absence of chunk and cave generation mechanics. Islands and crosses float randomly in the sky as if you're in the end of Evangelion. And a weird ore spawning mechanic that one of my viewers reminded me of under a Let's Play, Let's Blocks be generated 4 times more commonly in positive coordinates, which has to be checked manually by orientating yourself around the sunset, without even so much as a compass, because the F3 coordinates menu is gone. And F5 makes it rain, but only sometimes for some reason. Or F4 makes you spawn a nether portal that doesn't work and you can just spawn them all around the place. And these older versions feature a lot of developmental stuff that isn't available in later versions of the game for simple reasons, because they never should have been released to the public. But the bare bones nature of it has, admittedly, a lot of charm. Finding ores like coal or iron is now a lot more fun because you know that these are the rarest items in the game. They're so hard to break. You don't have to worry about wardens or netherite or 100 days in the nether or 100 shulker boxes or elytra and firework combinations or megastructures. Instead of feeling like you're terminally online for engaging with a community that's driven by surrealism-based hyperbait and mega projects that are just not achievable by a single player, you can go back to a simpler version of this game and suddenly feel like you're the guy who has built the biggest thing in his very particular world version, which I now am. My Minecraft Through the Ages world is now the most developed build on a March 2010 version of the game ever made. That is so hard to understand. I am playing a version unavailable in the launcher, only possible to reach for an archive launcher named Betacraft, from this very specific blog post with 3 likes on it in the last 15 years. And I'm having fun. Because it feels like I'm exploring a completely new and different frontier, ironically. It feels like I'm not only playing a sandbox game, but exploring the limitations of it. And instead of just the nausea from the nothingness of sitting behind a computer screen and playing the same old game for the 1000th time, it feels like I'm just sort of jumping back to basics and using my imagination to make something that's not there, discovering new things along the way. First, I discovered the coordinate glitch. Then I discovered that old Minecraft had a small feature of a bug of a dead player dropping their bodies scattered around the world. Yeah, go watch my video on that. And now I'm seeing that if I mine things by letting go of my cursor, and then mining the blocks by itself again, and then letting go of my cursor again, it's suddenly 25% faster in this version because of the old game mechanics present for only a few weeks during the game's development. And that saplings don't work and they don't grow and they're just bushes? Okay, maybe that isn't a plus, but you know what I'm saying. It's pretty funny to just have bush items. All in all, I'd highly recommend playing the game like I am here, by just taking a version, playing it to its limits, and then upgrading a few versions up, checking out the new stuff, making some building progress, making as much stuff and taking as much time out of it as you can, and then doing it all over again. It feels like the game evolves right before your eyes. And in old Minecraft, you can pretty much just set your own goals. The whole world feels like it's a possibility to you. And that's the fun of it, right? When we were kids, we thought that a stick in our hands could be a magic wand. That one day we could rule a kingdom or get into Hogwarts because we could imagine a sword or a wand in our hands. And every word could be a magic spell, and every new person could be a major character in our lives. We saw these stories on television and in cartoons. We sat by and played games while our parents complained about the 2008 financial crisis in the background. We didn't know we needed low-wage jobs or mortgages or retirement funds. That little boy who would one day give up his life for the military to defend his country, somewhere in Ukraine or Russia or Syria or Palestine, he was once just a kid, sitting up on a couch in his grandparents' house on Christmas Eve, putting a bunch of sheep and a fence together, proud of the little world that he had built. That little girl who would one day have her heart broken and worry about her grades and relationships in life was once also just another kid, sitting down with her plushies, making up stories about where they came from and who they were, going to the playground to make a sandcastle and dancing along to her favorite music on the radio, thinking that she was a ballerina in a big show and that her entire school was going to see her perform. Games like these that fostered children's imaginations and allowed them to play a part in a world bigger than themselves, alone and at their own pace. They're innocent. What isn't sweeter than seeing someone you love unleash their full imagination and creativity, to break down barriers and create things out of thin air and be their best comfortable self? Insofar, we've only talked about memories from childhood, but I don't think that I'll ever truly get over playing this game a few years ago with my ex-girlfriend. Seeing her eyes light up on a video call when we first found the Cherry Grove biome, or filled up her houses with cats and gave them names, or when I let her build her own corner of the world and came back in the morning to explore what she made together. Memories like these will always be special to me, even though they were only made in the most recent versions of the game, because like the older versions, they weren't on some arbitrary timetable of how a giant corporation thought the game should be played by people. For a while, I was just a kid again, in love and having fun with somebody truly special to me. And even though I don't think a memory like this can ever truly be replaced, and I can cling back to the nostalgia of my childhood and attempt to bring those rushing feelings of belonging back, I can still cherish them and appreciate them for what they were.